Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron,
I'm Tom.
and we are here with an after action report. Very exciting, very exciting. Tom, this was a knockdown 10-turn slugfest between the Kentucky Chargers and the Duchy of Andurien. And I played the Kentucky Chargers, which were basically taking on a mercenary role, raiding Shiro 3, which was a former Capellan world, now held by the Duchy. And so the Kentucky Chargers there to raid you for some mech parts and eventually, hopefully, basically build some sort of resistance and take the planet back. I guess was their plan. However, uh, to the tactics, it's take and hold
It's never
mission.
that easy.
It's never that easy. It was a take and hold mission. It was a map that basically featured some low hills, some forests, and a little bit of like sparse buildings. It was pretty good overall. What I think we should do first is why don't we go over the forces? So basically, what we did was a 4-on-4, lance on lance with some vehicle support. I had two tanks. Tom had a hovercraft. I'll talk through my force and sort of the thought pattern, that I had there. Now this is ilClan era, so we had all sorts of juicy things at our disposal. So the first mech that we had here, I had an Archer 7C. So this thing is a beastly design, 5.5 at short and medium range, 4 at long, and thus 3 at extreme range. This was my unit commander at skill 2. The movement is 5. I flubbed this the entire game. I kept moving them 4 inches until halfway through the game I realized. So, anyways, the next mech I took here was a Marauder 11D. I love this thing. It was in one of the early recognition guides. It's a mixed tech monster. It actually has the same stat line as the Archer in terms of damage, 5543. This does have an overheat value of 1, so medium range can do up to 6 points of damage, which I think I did use at one point against your Pegasus. Same XL engine issue with this design. It is not cheap. 41 points at skill 4. I took it at skill 3. The other one I took was a Blackjack BJ5. So this is a relatively new design. It's pretty solid stat line. Damage is 233. Extreme range is 2. But it's just a 4/6 jumps. It does have case 2. I guess that's useful. Not a bad little guy. 27 points for this thing. I think that's a bargain, honestly. And I really liked it. The only thing that sucks about it is 2 structure. Next, I took
I mean,
the Cataphract I took was also a relatively new rec guide design, the CTF5L, stat line 4432. In terms of damage, has reflective armor, which was fun and came into play. This, however, does not have an XL engine, so it's got a full 6 pips in structure.
so
So I
good.
love that. And then my meat shields, the Poe heavy tanks. There's the LBX variety. They can hit out to long range. They got a turret. They have decent armor. Total of 9 pips, 6 armor, 3 structure, which is really good, I think, for 21 points at skill 4. So very, very good there. Now, on your side, Thomas.
Yes.
Yes.
So my leading mech was my Highlander HGN 732, which is another really nice build. It's interesting. It's 3432. Must have, what is that, like missiles, I assume. So, but it has overheat 1. Nothing super good on the specials, but armor and structure at the yin yang. I felt like the tables were turned. Normally, Aaron shows up with a, a Fort Knox level of bullion, and it was me this time. So the Highlander performed great. I mean, it doesn't move great, but has jump jets. The Marauder 2 Mad 10D moves 4J again. Has jump, but this one's the killer, right? 5532. No specials except for the fact that you're not going to kill it with ammo explosion. Armor and structure, again, totally maxed out armor, great structure, killer mech, very expensive. But for what you're getting, I think it's worth it. Performed great. The Flashman, my favorite. FLS 9C, this thing slaps. 4432, overheat 2. He's just asking to show you what he's got, as they say. But yeah, Flashman's a great. I really always love playing this mech, mostly for the jokes, but it's also performs super great. Moves 5. And then we move on to my small man, the Jenner, everybody's favorite D-bot move 7 with jump jets. No structure to even talk about. It's basically made of popsicle sticks on the inside. But 3/3. So once it gets into range, it really hits hard, especially for the size. But again, it's another where you like pay a lot for it, and that's probably for some of the specials like having probe and RCN and case too. Then I got my Pegasus, and the Pegasus is great. I've really come to love tanks armor. They just always like they're hard to kill, and they frustrate your opponent, or at least they frustrate me. Yeah, so this is great. And then this one moves like the Dickens because it's a hover tank, so it moves 8, which is great. So you're getting a constant, super high TMM.
So as a
Yeah,
reminder, I don't know if we said
like
this
and
in
subscribe.
great point. Yes, like and subscribe. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We are, if not over 10,000 already, we are so close to
So
10,000.
close.
So close. And of course, if you want to get more involved, you can head on over to Patreon and help support the channel there. But what I was going to say was that this whole force, Tom, your force was picked by Dan. Dan was supposed to play the Andurian Rangers and had a plumbing emergency. One of his family members' toilet exploded or something. I'm not really sure. Dan's a good guy, so
He's too nice. Yeah,
he's way too nice. I'd have been like, Dad, tough. I'm playing BattleTech tonight. You're just gonna have to
I can
deal
just
with it.
imagine him like he was walking out the door with like his mechs, and he gets the call, and he just
Poor
turns around
guy.
and grabs like galoshes, like full on waders, and you know,
The
elbow high
gloves.
rubber gloves. Yeah, and he's just like, I'm ready.
I think the game was very good. Largely, there was good movement. There was good exchange of fire. I think at the end, I won on a technicality. To me, like it wasn't like a convincing win. I think maybe, and we'll get through it and we'll look. Maybe there could have been ways you could have cheesed me out of the win and sort of won on a
Yeah,
technicality. But
I would never do that.
in my mind, it was sort of like a draw, sort of like a war of
Yeah,
attrition. Both of our forces got incredibly battered. So why don't we dive into the map and take a
yes,
look? So this view, Tom, is right
mm,
after turn 1. All right,
yeah,
and basically what we're looking at here. Let me see if I can get this puppy in full screen. How do I go full screen, Tom?
yeah.
How does this work? Here we go. Uh,
There you go.
there we go. So if you look at basically this was after we moved, but already like your Jenner is cruising. I mean, this
Yeah,
thing is so fast. And the Pegasus right there with it, both of them featuring obnoxiously high TMMs. And then on my side, and we'll talk about this more as it progresses, I
yeah.
think I
You're up there in
misdeployed
the
here.
corner.
What's that? Yeah. Yeah, you see him down here, right? Yeah,
Yep.
awful. That was the archer, and then what I was hoping was that I would get elevation and be able to just rain death from like this hill all the way down, across. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, that didn't materialize, and then I screwed up the movement. I was moving them 6 inches when I really could have been getting an extra 2 inches, which over 3 turns is another foot of movement.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and it
just
and it makes you rethink where you would have moved, because like you couldn't get somewhere you could have gone somewhere you thought you couldn't, you know.
Yeah, exactly. A half a foot of movement. I exaggerated. Um, but yes, I totally agree with you. But the brick in the middle, the cataphract with the tanks, I think was a smart choice. And the marauder, the blackjack basically stood up here the whole game, if you remember. So this was this
Uh,
this was I
I've been
think
waiting till you stop talking so I can talk about how much I hated that building, but you know,
it's so true. I just absolutely abused it because you
yeah,
at some
there was
point. Go ahead. I
and
know
it
what you're
just
gonna
wasn't worth.
say.
Yeah, and it wasn't worth even trying to hit that blackjack for most of the game. And there was no way. It took me until the very end to start moving up to get behind it. But it was never worth it. It was just too much exposure. So you did a great job with positioning up there, at least.
Too much exposure for the Flash Man. Is that even
Yeah,
possible?
he couldn't have. Yeah, because the cataphract, it just was. He would have been shot down in a heartbeat,
I
and you
thought
had so much cover, and everything would have been at long range because there was no like that hole was like a killing field. There wasn't any real terrain cover,
right here,
so
yeah.
I had to be shooting at like extreme range.
Hmm.
and with a cover penalty, it's just hard, you know.
Agreed.
Um,
Yeah.
and right, and was that the mech that had the reflective armor? I don't remember.
No, that was the
That was the
cataphract down
cataphract.
here.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, if you want, I can. So on my side, you were talking about the Jenner. y- I don't know if you can tell from this top-down view, but that whole section in front of me is pretty thick, deep woods. This map actually had really good cover on that left side, which is the bottom side in this view. A lot of trees, a lot of like high elevation.
Hmm.
Um, so my idea was to get up in position and get ready, with my fast-moving mechs, which I think worked out. I was a little bit unsure what to do in the middle, but I had some really beefy mechs that just from playing you, I know, board control. You can just kind of walk them up the center, take some pips, but you really, control and force the opponent to engage with them. So that was
Yeah,
sort of what.
and another thing I wanted to call out was, you sort of talked about the topology a little bit, but there is, which might be tough to see from this view, there's a hill basically all in here. This is, I
Yeah,
believe, level 2 here, level 3 up here, I think level 1 here, and that's sort of wrapped around. So this whole area was sort of like an
like a
elevated,
valley. Yeah.
yeah, and this was all valley down here with these rough, hills and trees and things.
Oh, actually, and I forgot about that. Yeah, that whole upper side there was a pretty steep hill that I got the
Mhm.
flashman up on, right? If I
Yeah.
remember.
Yep. Yeah, I think you
Um,
deployed him up here and kept him.
yep, on the ridge.
Yeah. So
You,
deployment,
you'd call it ridge runner.
exposing himself on the ridge, as it were.
Yeah.
So we talked about in the past how important deployment is, and I think it literally is potentially the most important part of the game. And I don't know what I was thinking with the archer. If I would have deployed him right here, what a different game it would have been. I don't know what
Mm.
I was thinking. He could have had a commanding line of sight right to the objective. Um,
Yeah. I
I think I
don't.
was trying to be
Yeah.
cheeky, and it
Well,
didn't
I
it
think
didn't pay
you were.
off.
Yeah. You know, visually on the board, there's like again a channel that runs around there, and I think you were thinking to block me from being able to command that. Because if I could have gotten
Yeah,
up behind you, in full cover that whole time, that could have been dangerous for you. So,
yeah, yeah.
I could have put you out of position. So I don't think it was a bad position, but once that didn't materialize, then I think you could have redeployed and but you stood still a lot, I think.
And then turn three. So turn two. Let's just jump to turn three because turn two, the only really thing that happened that was pretty impressive was I got that critical hit on the Marauder, right? Like right
Yeah.
out of the gate. I got a fire control hit. I thought I was cruising, but not necessarily the case. So turn three. This is turn three, and we can see the progressive movement here. So your Jenner again, 3 turns in now zoomed in here. My block of armor was trying to push off that objective. This is where the blackjack shut off his engine for the game,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
Marauder started
Power
moving
power
down.
back.
Yep, just all power to guns, and this archer
He's
realized that
probably That's
he
probably like
was
a
deployed.
charging station and he's hooked into it.
Just it's just an
Yeah,
ammo feed. It's an ammo dump. He just got the ammo plugged into his auto. Ah
that's
man,
really
good
good.
stuff. Good stuff. But yeah, this is where I really realized the archer was like grossly out of position. You can see I barely moved him.
Yeah.
I can't believe I did that. But you're already contesting, and you score a point this objective or this
I
turn
do,
from the
yeah.
objective. So
Yeah, again, I realized that cover was close enough that I could, I put the tank in as a sacrificial lamb. They're hard to hit. He's got a high TMM, and I put the Jenner in the woods. He was still hittable from, or maybe he wasn't hittable at all actually. So I had him there as a backup if anything were to happen to my little floaty tank. But
yeah, and
other
I
than
think
that, yeah, you
uh,
can see the flashman kept moving.
yeah,
I
I'd have
think
to
if
go
I
back to the
remember.
tape. I think maybe the archer tried to shoot him and missed.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely were trying. And the Marauder, again, he's going to get up to that outcropping, and he kind of uses that similar to that building for most of the game.
Yeah.
Um, he kind of commands that section because it was a really good firing lane. It gave him a little bit of cover, but really he could, anytime you were trying to move up, um, I had pretty good line of sight. So
Turn 4 saw a few things happen. A few very sad things happened at the end of turn 4. But let's talk about the movement first. So this Marauder boldly going where no Marauder has gone before, right to the center of the board like a chump. And then this block of
like a
armor in
chump.
support. But you, and then here's this guy. He's like, guys, wait for me. And look, I got the TMM wrong because I'm a noob. I'm a noob slice. He should have been
That's hard.
probably should have been out here, which would have been game changing. Blackjack still
Yeah.
standing still. What I was thinking about doing here really was using this block of armor to kind of basically vanguard, sort of like thrust you off that
Yeah.
objective, but you
Yeah.
countered pretty hard. And the Marauder ended up dead at the end of this turn. It was barely damaged, and you just gutted it. It
Gutted
was
it.
the saddest thing I've ever
Yeah.
seen. Yeah.
It was pretty sad. Let me ask you something. We're halfway in here. Do you think keeping the blackjack there was a good move? Did it work out for you?
So considering the fragility of the blackjack,
Yeah. With
two
what, two
two
internal, right? Yeah.
yeah, two internal, and I think it. And I have to go back to the sheet. I think what did we say? It had 4 armor.
Yeah, 4-2.
Was it a 4-2? Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, actually 5-2. But it does so it's one of those mechs where at short range it does less. At medium and long it does its best at 3. And I think
Yeah.
at this point I was at like long range to the center of the board, if I recall. But
Oh,
even
that's right. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah. So you were good. That I think we talked about actually in the game, and I realized that you were in your sweet spot. So
yeah, I think I was happy with that. The only thing I was worried about was this Flashman flanking me, and
yeah,
I was hoping that I could clear most of this junk here so that I could move him around to this side and use that as the shield. But
yeah,
worst case, if I was really getting pummeled or stuck, I was going to drop him back and use these as cover,
you did
keeping
good.
him.
And then you
Yeah,
can see again the Marauder gets into that position, and what's happening there is like I think they're effectively shielded from the blackjack, and so they're isolating down that column that was moving in. So all they can basically do is see them.
end of the turn, Pegasus was dead. The Jenner was still contesting, and so I believe you ended up picking up a second objective point on this turn, second primary objective point. So let's jump forward to turn 5. Mostly everything at this point, except for that archer, has basically pushed up the board.
Archer.
Actually, here's the archer here, right? Counterfracts here. Archer finally clears this canyon. He's like, guys, I'm here. TMM is still
You see
wrong.
the smoke
Right from
from your
Marauder.
yeah.
I love that. I love that mech so much, that variant, and it didn't help me out in this particular game. So the archer still TMM wrong. Still haven't realized it's faster. The Potank's now clogging up that objective, which was great
Yep.
for a little bit.
The Jenner fled.
Jenner
Yeah.
Jenner's like, tanks run. Um, at this point,
Yep.
the Marauder 2 was stationary, still had the fire control hit. I still was not internal on this freaking thing. It's crazy to
No,
me.
I mean it had so much armor. Yeah.
So much armor. But I was intent on killing it. So I focused a whole bunch of my fire on that Marauder too, and I did end up bringing it down. I think at one point it was in withdrawal in that turn, and you were like, "Oh, should we just, are you going to leave it alone? Are you going to keep going for it?" And I was like, "I need it dead," because even the Marauder in withdrawal at this point is like
Yeah.
devastating.
5-5-4. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah,
It's just
I did not want to take that risk, so I put everything on the Marauder. Finally, took it down.
yeah. I mean it's interesting looking at this top down again. You can really see how the movement decisions are now dictating all of the action. You came in with those tanks and they're there now, and I had to flee, and I have to figure out a solution because you're just going to keep scoring if I don't somehow take them out. So then I have to, but you have two mechs walking in, and you're getting your cataphract in position, to back them up if it needs to jump in, which I think it ends up having to do at some point. But in the Flashman, I kept worrying that he's just kind of out of position. He's getting shots in, but shooting at long and extreme when you could be doing closer range, more damage, easier shots. It's
Yeah.
hard. And especially when you miss, then you feel like a real dum dum.
Such a dum dum. Well, you did a great job this turn because you put both of these tanks in force withdrawal. It's a lot of damage.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I mean, the Marauder, again, I think I overheated since it was dead.
All right, so
Um,
that was turn 5. So at the end of turn 5, there were no primary objective points gained. So let's take a look at this. So this is turn 6. Now, a couple things notable happened on turn 6. You gained yet another objective point.
with that
You put,
Jenner. Yeah.
that's right, the Jenner did it. You put some damage on the Cataphract, otherwise, nothing else. I believe you tried to kill the Potanks and couldn't. Something weird
I,
happened there.
yeah, I did very bad.
I had a very good turn. I managed to put your Flashman in forced withdrawal. I damaged your Highlander, right? Your Marauder was down, and I put this particular hit actually I think turned out to be pivotal in the game. I put about 50% damage on your Jenner's armor, um, which was important for the late game. From a movement perspective, was not creative with the blackjack. He just shuffled around up there within his movement range. The archer kind of tucked in here along the hill. The cataphract tucked into the forest. I was trying to shield it from this Highlander, and I put all my fire on the Flashman. So
Yeah.
similar to your tactics, isolating the line of sight, trying to just limit the number of incoming targets, and get the most number of my own units on my primary target, right? And I think I did a pretty good job of that in this particular turn. And I think the dice landed in my favor, which was good.
Yeah, and you can see like the Flashman I pulled up. I think at that point I decided I was going to try to get him up to that blackjack because I thought that I kind of had you on the run a little bit, but I
Hmm.
didn't, of course. But yeah, and then same thing. The Jenner had to get into range to cap, and that forced me to expose him a little bit. But it
Yeah.
is what it is.
So that was that. You picked up another objective point. So this is turn 7. And
Hmm.
we can see the Flashman's in withdrawal. The Highlander didn't really move very far. I don't know if that was intentional or because it's slow. Uh, Jenner's
There's
still
nowhere
kind of,
for it to go. Yeah.
yeah. The Jenner ducked out. You ducked him out this turn, which was an interesting choice. I mean, I think you were trying to preserve for late game. I wonder if you would have stayed there, what would have happened.
So I pulled the Jenner back because I think at this point I was up 3-0 on primary objective points.
Yes.
And I thought that I had enough of a buffer that I could concede. I didn't need to score another. You did. So if I pulled back and you came in, that would put me in an advantage. And again, like you said, I needed the Jenner to survive because I knew if I died, game over.
Yeah.
Game over, man.
Game
So,
over, bro. No, that makes a lot of sense actually, and
yeah.
so you managed to kill one of the Potanks this turn. So I pulled them both. I did like the old 1 inch back and like a couple inches
Yeah.
up to get better angles of fire. I actually think I was trying to get angles on that Jenner, but the
Yeah.
one got disintegrated. The Archer was bold here, which actually um, was okay this turn, but you ended up murdering it later. So,
Yeah.
so turn 7 is turn 7. That was pretty good. So at the end of turn 7, there were no change in primary objective points. Now in turn 8, Tom, lots of crazy stuff happened. So
Yeah.
it looks like you put my cataphract in force withdrawal, um, and then Delta Motive hit to it. I killed the Flashman. Again on this like
Yeah.
headhunting quest, did not want to leave anything in withdrawal. Killed the Flashman, put a little bit more damage on that Highlander. So at this point, you're down to 2 units at the end of turn 8. Now, in terms of movement, I actually look at that. The blackjack came out to play.
Yeah,
I
and I
think,
was thinking too, like, what do you have left at this point as well? So I have 2, but what do you
yeah,
got?
I've got.
3?
So I have 2 as well. The cataphract goes in. Well, actually, yeah. So I have 2 units in force withdrawal: the cataphract and the potank, and then a fresh archer that's undamaged, and a fresh blackjack that's undamaged.
Yeah.
So those 2 units in force withdrawal still had the capability of shooting, and that the cataphract specifically had some bite.
But yet again, I blocked you from scoring an objective point.
So that's because you put the cataphract in withdrawal. That's right. This is the
Mhm.
cataphract, and you basically double gunned him, I think, and brought him into force withdrawal status. So you are correct. No points scored, and we're going into at this point. We're going into turn 9, right? So we know there's a timer on this. We know that the game automatically ends at turn 10. So we got to turn 9. All right, here we are, and your Jenner retreated a little bit further away. Now, this is where I wonder, like, this is and I was looking at this footage after because, when we were at the game table, I was like, dude, I think you let me win. Like, but now that I'm looking at it from the bird's eye view, like, if you were more aggressive with the Jenner, although I guess the strategy could have been you could have sprinted away with the Jenner, right? Out of line of sight or far, far away.
And that's
You
right.
know,
So yeah, I think we talked about that night,
yeah.
and I was like, I can't do that. Like, it's
You
just
could have.
cheesy.
You could. It's true, but and if it were like a tournament game and you didn't care about the guy across the table, right? You totally could
Right.
have sprinted him away, right? And you could have gotten those. You would have gotten the win. Now that's not to say though. That's not to say because looking at this, like maybe you sprint him here, maybe you sprint him straight back. Unless you're going straight away, which you could have done, it is possible that because these guys are remember up on level 1 elevation at this
Mhm.
point, they can see over the
Yeah.
woods. And that archer had some pretty good pretty good extreme range damage rather, and line of sight from that. So I think you probably still could have gotten away with it, and you probably could have escaped because who knows, those
He's
shots would have
fast.
been TMM4 and like extreme range. I mean, I would have been like tens to hit or something.
Yeah.
But so turn 9,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I imagine the Jenner is like what was that movie? Like The Land Before Time when that dinosaur is stealing the eggs out of the nest. I imagine the Jenner keeps going back to steal eggs, and then like he can just run away with them, but he didn't. He had to go back for that one last egg.
The one last egg.
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, the Jenner, that's all I did. I had to keep him around, but I didn't want to expose him, but I didn't want to run away with him. So I kept him close enough that like you could hit him, but it'd be at like, through the woods with a TMM of 3. And again,
Yeah,
the Highlander was trying to minimize his exposure, and just him and the archer basically is I think what I was trying to do.
yeah.
Um, yeah, because I think he was completely obscured from the other mechs behind that terrain. I don't know if you have like a bird's eye. Do you have like a mech level view? I thought that was pretty obstructive right there. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like I think he was pretty well covered from your mechs.
He was. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was. I don't think I put much damage on him. However, you
Yes,
were
this is a great view. Yeah.
yeah, you were building up some heat for sure.
Yeah.
Let me see if
Yeah. I
I
had to
can
take the time to burn that off at some point,
get
but
this to
yeah, I
pan
mean,
around a little more. There you go. So
yeah,
you
like
kind of
that's a great. You
see.
can see where, yeah, the Jenner's pretty well hidden, and you can really see what lines there are.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah,
the last turn, you went into turn 10, 3-0. You had 3 objective points. I had none. I had more secondary objective points, but
I had what, two maybe,
you had 2. But at
two
the end of the
second.
game, the force withdrawal guys count as kills. So technically, it wasn't that far off. So, damage wise, though, on turn 10, um,
Yeah,
you gutted my
it was bad.
archer,
Yeah,
which was sad. I mean, I put everybody basically out. I moved them further up this hill to get shots, on
yeah.
the be able to see the Jenner, be able to see the Highlander, and I
Right.
mean, I
At
was
this point, like you
really
said, yeah, you had to kill them to win. Yeah,
correct. I didn't care about the objective, and so I knew, I had line of sight here. This tank was out of the fight, but the cataphract again, this is like one of those things where, um, do you kill mechs in force withdrawal or do you let them go, right? Like Cataphract was alive, still able to do decent damage here, and I was able to get enough damage on this Jenner right? That it resulted in 2 mechs, right? All of your mechs in force withdrawal, which essentially at the end of the game, per the mission rules, counts as a wipe, which then automatically the primary objective is awarded, right, to me.
Yeah.
So I sort of won on a technicality.
I wish I couldn't have killed the cataphract. I don't think. Like I tried. I didn't like ignore him because he was in. I've learned my lesson on that. Like I don't. I think I've changed my mind about leaving things alone in force withdrawal.
Yeah,
Um, I think you just have to cap them. You gotta.
you got to knock them off. I mean, unless
Yeah.
they're way out of range, like if they're on the fringes of
Yeah. Or
long and
took a bunch
extreme
of
range,
motor. Yeah, it took like a bunch of fire
fire
control
control,
hits.
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Um,
Damage. Don't
yeah,
or they don't have long and extreme. Like if that Jenner, you know what I mean? He's out of the fight at long. He doesn't have any. So
exactly. But I think when they can still bite, like that's when you want to wipe them out for sure. I mean, again, turn 9 was pivotal. Could you run the general way? Would it have mattered? I think it could have. So, closing thoughts on this one. I will tell you this: I love this game. I thought it was
yeah.
very good. It was a nail biter. I still, like in my heart, feel like you maybe let me win, but at the same time, I understand you don't want to be a cheese ball. I don't think I would have done that either. I would have tried to fight you off or at least hold my ground and see what happens.
You fair and square won this. I Granted, I wasn't cheesing it, but we don't cheese. Neither of us cheeses
Yeah,
these games.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean it was really good. It was again down to I always love when they come down to the last turn. That's a
yeah.
really good match in my opinion. And I hate like I hate it that you won it by killing everything, but that's a completely valid way to win.
I think
Yeah.
the to your comment about everybody dying. I think Taken Hold is a mission that lends itself to just carnage in that way. I actually think we did a
Yeah.
really good job of dancing, and keeping units alive and not just like bum rushing in. Like we were very strategic
Yeah.
or tactical, I guess, about
Courting.
yeah,
Yeah, we were
just like my
courting too.
plumage.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I was doing like the bird of paradise dance thing with I'm hiding behind the wing. Is
That's
it
right.
this? Yeah,
No,
cool.
I know it. I know it. So, on that note, why don't we wrap up this after action report? Good game as always. It was a lot of fun, and it was
Yeah.
it was tactically engaging, which makes it doubly fun. But that said, a couple of quick announcements, if I may. Number one, if you want to populate your tabletop with minis, Aries Games and Minis is the place to
Yeah,
go.
crank.
Uh, they got Hardware Studios, Felder cases, all the Catalyst stuff, the books, Army Painter paints, everything, literally everything you need to enjoy this hobby. So definitely check out Aries Games and Minis. Also, this battle report featured some fantastic terrain from our friends over at Terrainify. Thom has all the terrain pieces committed to memory.
Call
But
me
if
if
you
you have a question. Yeah.
was I was rewatching the battle report before we did this, and like at the beginning, I don't know if you remember, you were like, oh,
Yeah.
that's dynamic hill F, and I was like, no way, and you were like, oh yeah, it's F, and then you were like B, and then, like you just like guessed all all of them.
I didn't guess
Uh,
anything.
that's
I
funny.
rotated that in my head. I'm very good with my spatial
It's like Tom
recognition.
Cruise in whatever
Yeah.
that movie was. What was it?
Minority
Minority Report.
Report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where he's like,
Yeah.
anyway, so go
Really.
to Terrainify. And lastly, we said it once, we'll say it twice. Subscribe, like, leave a comment. Tell us what you thought about the battle report.
Get
Tell
us
us
over
what you
that 10,000.
get
Get
us
us over
over.
that.
Get us
It'll
over
be
that hump.
huge.
That'd be huge. And of course, come on
We
over to
really need that.
Patreon. Help us out. Subscribe over on Patreon. $1 is the minimum. $5, $10, and then there's the elite tier as well if you're super cool. And all those tiers comes with they all come with different perks and things like that. So that said, I'm all done. Thom, any closing thoughts?
My brain is as empty as the battlefield.
It's true. Just some flaming carcasses of mechs, twisted metal. All
Yeah,
right.
all my
Well.
ideas are on fire. Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this after action report. And of course, stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming. Have a good night.